in high definition. This is CBS2 News at 6.
Now at 6, on the hunt for an attempted kidnapper. Good evening, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez, in tonight for Glenn Walker.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Alvarez. Thanks for joining us. Our top story at 6 o'clock, a bold attempted kidnapping in Orange County. The child was being led away from a softball game when her family intervened. CBS 2's Lonnie Rivera is live in Fountain Valley with more on how this happened. Lonnie.
Linda, incredible help in this investigation. That's what detectives are calling this photo you see. It was taken by a parent who thought this man was acting suspiciously here in this park. A place for fun, sun, and softball turned into a backdrop for an attempted kidnapping Saturday afternoon.
The father did take a couple of pictures of the suspect because he thought he was acting suspiciously.
Police want you to take a close look at these photos captured by a concerned dad. He noticed this man watching his daughter's softball game.
He was making comments about the baseball game, cheering him on, talking about his niece plays in that league, and she was going to play today. And again, they knew that there was no game today, so they knew that was out of place.
Out of place and maybe up to something. Detectives believe he preyed on a girl. The man walked from these bleachers over to where a 10-year-old mentally disabled girl was playing next to the field. The suspect then grabbed the child's hand and made his way through this field. That's when her sister noticed she was gone.
The victim's sister yelled her name. The suspect let go of the victim's hand and then ran away.
For parents, it's a simple reminder of danger lurking everywhere.
I don't think any place is safe these days, and I mean that's why I'm over here with the boys watching them as they're going to play, because even if you're 50, 100 feet away, someone can swipe your child.
And here's yet another look at the suspect. He was wearing a green hat, a green t-shirt with blue jeans. If you've seen this man, Orange County Sheriff's Department want you to contact them. Reporting live in Fountain Valley, Lonnie Rivera, CBS 2 News, back to you.
All right, Lonnie, thank you. Now, this sounds incredible. The upper deck of a Bay Area freeway simply melted and collapsed earlier today. Joe Vasquez from our sister station in San Francisco has more.
A huge fireball over Emeryville burned brightly in the early morning sky. Intense heat from a tanker fire melted a section of freeway, bringing devastation to an already challenging traffic situation near the Bay Bridge. It happened just before 4 a.m. The driver was headed from Emeryville toward Oakland on the 880 South connector. He took a sharp turn and bounced off the guardrail. He then skidded out of control.
Our initial investigation leads us to believe that unsafe speed was a factor in this collision. We think the driver was taking the transition at an unsafe speed, lost control, struck the right guardrail and overturned. He was carrying about 8,600 gallons of unleaded gasoline, which caught fire.
What did you hear?
Just a big boom.
For 2 hours, the fire raged on. Flames of up to 2,000 degrees melted the steel girders and bolts of the bridge above the accident, eventually disconnecting the connector. The upper deck collapsed onto the lower connector, obliterating the tanker underneath. Then it cascaded over the side like a concrete waterfall.
The driver was hurt, but incredibly, he managed to escape this wreckage. Police say he actually walked down to a nearby gas station and caught a cab to the hospital.
Police have identified the driver as 51-year-old James Mosqueda. The cabbie says when he picked Mosqueda up at the gas station, the tanker driver had blisters on his hands and was crying out in excruciating pain. He is now being treated at St. Francis Hospital's burn unit. Meanwhile, today's mess is squarely on the MacArthur Maze. Caltrans crews are working to assess the damage. Next is the cleanup, and then a multi-million-dollar repair job, which will take months. Officials are relieved, though, it was not worse.
We were very lucky in the sense that no lives were lost in the sense that if this occurred during normal driving hours or during a commute hour, this could have easily turned into a very ugly incident. So we were very lucky in that sense that no one lost a life and just someone with moderate injuries.
And we are back live. You can see they're using heavy equipment to scrape the concrete off the melted steel grid. This is a major stretch of highway. It was destroyed after that series of explosions overnight. This is the worst traffic disruption, they're saying right now, Linda, in nearly 20 years, not since 1989 when we had the Loma Prieta earthquake, have we had this big a mess.
Oh, remember that. Thank you so much. Joe Vasquez reporting from San Francisco, Oakland area. Developing news now, a deadly shooting at a Kansas City shopping mall leaves 2 people dead, 2 others hurt. And now police believe the killing spree may have started earlier in the day. Police say the violence began when a woman was found dead in her home, her car missing. A police officer spotted the car later, but when he pulled the driver over, he was shot in the arm and the driver took off. The car was later spotted at a mall parking lot where police say the suspect shot 2 people before going inside and shooting 2 others. The suspect was then fatally shot, but it's unclear whether the police killed him or he killed himself. Witnesses say people started running in all directions after they heard the shooting.
I was inside the aisle reading a magazine. People just started running, and a woman came out, was running down the aisle behind everybody saying somebody was shooting. Started running. As far as I know, there's just one person.
Still no word on the condition of the wounded or the motive for that shooting.
Well, Linda, it was a fast-moving fire that came near homes in Riverside County. Tonight, that fire is history. Huge flames rose up along the Santa Ana riverbed in Mira Loma during the height of the fire yesterday. It burned through 117 acres. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. Crews contained the fire by about 7 o'clock this morning. Tonight, they're checking for hot spots. The heat was a big problem for firefighters in Mira Loma, but luckily it did cool down for most of us today. Let's bring in Kai Goldberg with the first look at the forecast. Hi, Kai.
Hey, Juan. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, it was quite a delightful Sunday out there. We topped out downtown at 75 degrees today. Right now, downtown 68. So again, we're looking at a great evening out there. You still have some time to get out and enjoy the day for yourselves. Currently, Los Angeles downtown, a little bit further east, about 57 degrees. Lancaster, gorgeous and warm, 98 degrees there. Up north towards Oxnard, 68 degrees. And we're looking out towards the Pacific Ocean as we see that marine layer begin to come on in. Also, we're seeing some low-level cloud cover. I'll tell you how that's going to affect your Monday coming up in the full forecast. Linda?
Thank you very much, Kai. Jury selection is set to start tomorrow in the case of a police shooting caught on tape. Grainy home video shows a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy shooting a U.S. airman 3 times as he struggled to obey an order to get up. Ivory Webb, now a former deputy, pleaded not guilty to felony charges. Webb told investigators he thought 21-year-old Elio Carrion was reaching for a weapon. Authorities later determined Carrion was not armed.
More clues tonight in a murder mystery we first told you about Friday night on CBS2 News. Sonia Rios Riskin narrowly escaped a shooting attack 9 days ago at her beauty salon by a man who warned, "I'll be back." Friday, the 60-year-old woman was shot and killed in her Lomita home. Police now confirm that Riskin was under investigation for possibly killing 2 husbands for their insurance money nearly 2 decades apart back in the Philippines. And still no arrests in a deadly shooting at a funeral. The victim was gunned down at a Southern Missionary Baptist church in South LA yesterday. He was at the church for his cousin's funeral when someone started shooting. Shots were fired outside the church, then the gunman ran inside while still firing. The victim was wounded 4 times and died a short time later.
A former American Idol finalist is arrested. See who could be singing Jailhouse Rock straight ahead.
Plus, dozens of animals are found sick and dying on local beaches.
It's a major league tragedy. A pro baseball player is killed.
And the race for president comes to California. We're with the candidates.
But first, here's a look at what's hot on CBS2.com right now.
CBS2 News is brought to you by Acura. Acura Advance. From CBS2 Los Angeles, Glenn Walker, Linda Alvarez, Kai Goldberg with 2 View Weather, and Steve Hartman with sports. You're watching CBS2 News at 6 in high definition.
It's a sad sight. Sea lions and birds washing up on Southern California beaches, many of them dead or dying. Well, the culprit appears to be a more toxic form of the red tide that we here in Southern California often see, especially at night when the ocean seems to glow. Well, in this red tide, an ocean algae is producing a toxic acid. CBS 2's Orange County reporter Michelle Gili has more.
It's what one wildlife official is describing as a crisis situation at the beach.
I think it's getting pretty dire right now, right? specifically in Newport Beach, Huntington Beach is very concentrated right now. We're getting a lot of dead or sick birds, seabirds, coming into our center right now, and reports of at least 1 or 2 sea lions that are beached and or dead on our beaches.
Bags of bird carcasses have been delivered by animal control to the care center, where necropsies or post-mortem exams are being done to help confirm that domoic acid poisoning is the cause. In simple terms, it's food poisoning caused by a bacteria in the sea that is spread as the birds feed on infected fish. Reports of ill and dying birds, as well as marine mammals, started coming in on Monday. This sea lion in Newport Beach is just one of the sick.
We've gotten calls from the public starting since Sunday about birds wandering around in unusual locations, being listless, head ticking, one that had flown into a storage area where a dumpster was. It was trapped inside of there, walking down the middle of Main Street, one in somebody's backyard.
Volunteers at the Wildlife Center are trying to save 11 birds, the lucky ones, by pumping fluids into them. A few are well enough to gulp down fish. The fear is that this could go on for days. For CBS 2 News, Michelle Geely reporting.
And domoic acid can be deadly to humans, and because of that, the state has issued a quarantine for sport-harvested mussels. Now, those are not commercially caught mussels, but the ones that you might catch on the pier, for example. The state says you should not eat them from now until October.
And Linda, now a warning about another danger in the water. A drought in Florida is forcing alligators to go in search of deeper lakes or canals. A lot of those gators are finding their way into neighborhoods, and some homeowners say they've seen as many as 5 gators wandering around in one day. They're afraid the gators might attack a child.
We've seen more and more. Our first year here, we probably would see 1 or 2 on a given day, and now, like I said, we're up to 5 or 7 in the morning that will be right here on the bank.
Well, here are the numbers. Florida has had less than 6 inches of rainfall this year. That's 4 inches below normal.
A relief pitcher who helped his team win the World Series is dead tonight. Josh Hancock died when his SUV slammed into the back of a tow truck in St. Louis just after midnight. Investigators say the 29-year-old may not have seen the tow truck. Hancock is the second Cardinals pitcher to die in 5 years. The team postponed its home game tonight, and we'll have much more on the death of Josh Hancock later in sports.
A former American Idol finalist is out on bail tonight after being arrested for felony battery. It's Jessica Sierra there allegedly hit a man over the head with a glass during an argument in Tampa, Florida. Police say a search of Sierra's purse turned up cocaine, so now she's also facing drug charges. Sierra made it to the American Idol finals back in 2005.
Some of the most horrifying crime scene photos that you could ever see were shot here in Southern California.
They're some of the most gruesome murder scenes in America's history. And they were all photographed by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Crime Scene Lab. LA County Sheriff's Department Chief Photographer John Shaw takes us behind the lens and inside the city's state-of-the-art crime lab. It's here in this studio. Prints are developed from infamous crime scenes. One crime that Shaw will never forget.
Probably the Linda Sobek case. That was the model that was murdered by the photographer.
Crime scene photos tomorrow night right here on CBS 2 News at 11.
On a lighter note here, Scotland Yard is calling in the fashion police. It wants new uniforms. Check it out. This is the current police uniform. It's basically a suit with pants and jacket and a tie. Then there's the hat, which is made of cork. We didn't know that. Officers say chasing suspects in that huge hat is not easy. Scotland Yard is asking fashion design students to come up with a more user-friendly uniform. Suggestions so far include a one-piece outfit, a cork hat. Who knew?
and you know, the British are so much into tradition. It's
maybe hard to break away from that.
I think it might be. But it was hard to break away from the beautiful weather
yeah.
today. Come to work, and Kai Goldberg has been talking about that. You didn't want to come in, did you?
Don't tell him. No, I didn't. I'm sure there's a lot of folks at home still enjoying the weather out there, whether you're barbecuing, what have you. It was a great day. And we're looking at seeing a beautiful Monday headed your way for the beginning of the work week. Temperatures are going to start to fall. That's the good news. We're also starting to see a little bit of that marine layer creeping in. Right now, we're looking outside, and we are seeing those low clouds as well as that fog. That shot looking live right now toward towards the Santa Monica area from Malibu. And you can see just a beautiful evening as the sun begins to set on a nice Sunday. And again, we're going to start to see some hazy conditions as well as that fog and a possibility at seeing some drizzle coming up in your future. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But 75 degrees, that was our official high today. We saw an overnight low of 59 degrees. That record back in 1981 was about 94 degrees. Right now we're looking at 68 degrees downtown. That's the readings at USC. Humidity at 63%. That visibility at 8 miles. Winds out of the west at 6 miles per hour. Now we're looking at that marine layer beginning to creep on shore. You can clearly and distinctly see that marine layer coming on in. We also saw some low to mid-level cloud cover moving in, but it kind of went through Santa Barbara up into the Bakersfield area, and it spared Los Angeles County. We're going to start to see more cloud cover coming our way tomorrow. Once again, you can see that marine layer very clearly here on your screen. We're also looking at a low pressure system just off of the south side of the Aleutian Islands. We're seeing that high pressure filling in. There's that big cold front moving in, but high pressure is going to keep that cold front well to the north. We're going to see a little bit of a dip in temperatures, but not much as we make our way into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And once again, a possibility of some drizzle. And here it is, that fog coming in for you on Monday. Warm temperatures inland, fog along the coast, and a possibility of some drizzle along the coastline. And it's going to stay like that until about Tuesday, possibly Wednesday morning. So starting your work week, coastal morning fog, patchy morning drizzle as well throughout the coastal areas. Warm inland, a slight cool down. We're going to see temperatures in the mid 70s inland. And let's talk about our forecast numbers tonight. Palm Springs this evening, 69 degrees, so a beautiful evening out in the desert. Big Bear City, 37. Apple Valley coming in at about 58 degrees tonight. Pomona seeing 56. Lakewood, 53 degrees. Up north towards Santa Barbara, 51 degrees tonight. Ventura coming in at about 54. Tomorrow, here are the highs for you. Lancaster about 88 degrees, 85 in Santa Clarita. Pacoima coming in at 84. Redondo Beach and Long Beach coming in at about 70 degrees. So again, the beaches are going to be very nice in the morning, except again for that early morning coastal fog and drizzle. That will be at around 11 a.m. and then start to recede for you. Big Bear City tomorrow, 77 degrees, 102 degrees in Palm Springs. So it's going to be a warm one in the desert. So for your Monday, we're talking about that morning drizzle, 75 degrees. Tuesday, 71. Wednesday, 72. We will stay in the low 70s throughout the rest of the work week. And next weekend, not a bad work weekend coming your way. 73 degrees, 74 next Monday. So again, a great 8-day forecast headed your way. Hope you enjoy it. Have a good work week, guys.
Indeed it was.
It does look good, doesn't it?
Coming up next, 15 years ago today, chaos erupted in Los Angeles. We're remembering the riots.
Plus, a famed journalist is shot in Iraq. Details in minutes.
And then it's the tale of the tales. Why your dog's wag reveals what he or she is thinking.
Stay with us. The new HD CBS 2 News at 6 o'clock. We'll be right back.
Well, it's safe to say that anywhere he goes, he draws a crowd, and things were no different today at UCLA. A long line of people waited patiently to get up close and personal with Dr. Phil McGraw. He appeared at today's Festival of Books event at Royce Hall. Besides having a #1 talk show, Dr. Phil is also the author of several books. He spent part of the day signing copies for his very excited fans. And don't you forget, you can see Dr. Phil right here on CBS2 weekdays at 4 o'clock.
Deception and intrigue ruled the box office this weekend. Disturbia came out on top for the third week in a row. It's the story of a teen who suspects his neighbor is killing people. The debut of The Invisible, about a teenage ghost who tries to avenge his own murder, came in second with $7.6 million. Nicolas Cage's Next came in third with just over $7 million, followed by Fracture and Blades of Glory.
It is the ultimate in recycling. Coming up next, a clothing company wants to turn your old clothing into new garments to save the planet.
Plus, presidential hopefuls flocked to Southern California this weekend.
And remembering the LA riots 15 years later. We have a live report coming up next. Presidential candidate Barack Obama was a featured guest at the First AME Church in South Los Angeles today. The Democratic senator from Illinois got a standing ovation from parishioners and a serenade from Stevie Wonder. He told church members his candidacy offers their community a hope for a better future. He spoke of health care and a better education for children. Obama wants to end the war in Iraq and use funds to help people get out of poverty.
Why is it we can find the money in a second for a war that doesn't make any sense, but we can't find the money to take out the bullet of poverty in this country and stitch up our community so every child has a chance at a decent life?
Lots of enthusiasm there. Obama says his presidency would usher in a new America and move the nation forward.
Well, Senator Obama's rivals for the Democratic presidential nomination also are in Southern California today. Senator Hillary Clinton attended a fundraiser in Bel Air geared toward women professionals, while former North Carolina Senator John Edwards and New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson spoke at the California Democratic Party convention in San Diego. The Republican presidential candidates will be in Southern California later this week. Their first debate is set for Thursday at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley.
And Linda, for the first time, one of the key figures in the run-up to the war in Iraq is telling his story, and he is not holding anything back. George Tenet was the director of the CIA back then. He left the agency 3 years ago, and he blames the White House for leaking a story about him, saying the case for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was, quote, a slam dunk.
The hardest part of all this has just been listening to this for almost 3 years. Listening to the vice president go on Meet the Press on the 5th year of 9/11, and say, well, George Tenet said slam dunk, as if he needed me to say slam dunk to go to war with Iraq. I say, I believed that he had weapons of mass destruction. And now what's happened here is you've gone out and made me look stupid. It's the most despicable thing I've ever heard in my life. Men of honor don't do this.
Men of honor don't.
You don't do this. You don't throw people overboard. You don't do this. You don't call somebody in. You work your heart out. You show up every day. You're going to throw somebody overboard just because it's a deflection? Is that honorable? It's not honorable to me.
Well, he's got lots more to say. That's George Tenet tonight on 60 Minutes at 7 p.m. That's immediately following this newscast.
In the battle for Iraq, American troops discovered an insurgent stronghold today while combing a Baghdad neighborhood for al-Qaeda hideouts. They captured 36 insurgents and found a stash of bomb-making material. The raids were carried out in a mixed Shiite-Sunni neighborhood. It was part of the ongoing security crackdown in the city. One of Iraq's best-known journalists is hospitalized tonight in serious condition after being targeted by a team of assassins. Gunmen were waiting in parked cars outside Amal al-Madara's home. They opened fire when the woman, who's in her 60s, stepped outside. 100 journalists have been killed in Iraq since the war began. 48 have been abducted and remain missing. Taliban fighters caught on video unleashing gunfire and mortars on American troops, retaliating as they destroy a poppy field in Afghanistan. A TV crew was documenting the mission when the siege began. Americans are teaming up with Afghans to eliminate illegal poppy fields. Last year, opium production rose 49%.
Demonstrations took place in more than 30 countries today, all to bring attention to the conflict in Darfur. In Boston, demonstrators staged a die-in laying across a field to represent the massive loss of life in the region. The war between rebels, the Sudanese army, and the pro-government Janjaweed militia has turned the region into the world's largest humanitarian disaster. More than 200,000 people have been killed and another 2 million are displaced. Organizers say they hope today's protests will get the world's attention.
I think the international community should be doing far more. The international community through the UN, well over a year ago now, announced that they had a duty, a responsibility to protect, but that means nothing to the people who are encamped tonight in Darfur, 2 million of them, tonight as last night and as tomorrow.
Organizers chose the date, April 29th, as the approximate 4th anniversary since the start of fighting.
They were some of the darkest days in the history of Los Angeles, the 1992 riots. And 15 years later, activists say the poverty and violence that fanned the initial flames are still very much alive. And now some community leaders say little has been done to rebuild the neighborhoods destroying by the rioting. Well, CBS2 Susie Sa is live in South LA, and she can tell us that still that lot is abandoned 15 years later, Susie.
That's right, Linda. You know, 15 years ago, behind this lot behind me, behind this fence here, there used to be a popular neighborhood market as well as a bookstore. As you can see here, there's nothing much left but weeds and cracked concrete. And community activists say today this isn't the only area, unfortunately, that desperately needs rebuilding after all of these years.